Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this presentation of IT Career Pathways. Thank you to our guests joining us here in person at the Ignite Hub and also our guests joining us online via Zoom. So, today we are going to be talking about careers in data, cloud, and web and app development. So, thank you. So, again, this is part three of uh, three-part series. For those of you who have joined us on the two other previous sessions, thanks again and welcome again. If you did not attend the other sessions, that is okay. That's not a problem. Well, this is a series. You can come to any of the sessions. It's recommended that you come to all three of them. If you miss any of them, the two previous sessions were recorded and they have been posted in our YouTube channel. This session will also is being recorded and will be posted in the Ignite Hub's YouTube channel within 48 hours. In addition, everybody that registered to this event, regardless if they attended or not, will receive an email with a link to the presentation and also a copy of this presentation. Okay, so this presentation has some links which will be live and you will be able to access when you receive a copy of it. So let's start with our objectives for today. We are going to be here for a couple of hours. We're going to have a little break in between. But today we have a lot to talk about. We are going to, again, explore career paths in data, cloud, and web and app development. We're also going to discuss the skills, the training, certifications, salaries, and job outlooks for these particular careers or paths. And then finally, some other helpful resources. Okay, so let's start with who I am. For those of you, again, who have attended the other two sessions, a couple of things here may be a little bit of a repetition, but I think that there's a lot of new material here as well. So anyhow, my name is Eduardo Novoa. I am the Technical and Training Development Coordinator here at the Ignite Hub. I have been in the IT industry for about 20 years or so, and I've done quite a few things during this time. I started actually repairing and building computers when that was a thing, when that was actually economically feasible, and there were still people doing that. That's how long I've been. I've also done a lot of, I spent a lot of time doing support, a couple of different levels. We talked about careers in support last week. And again, it's one of those areas that it's is big in IT. It's always a lot of need for that. It's not one of the areas that is growing the most, but it is steady in the sense that companies always need support people. Talking about growth, we are going to be talking about two areas that are growing a lot in IT, and that's going to be the data and the cloud. Okay, so last but not least, I do have a bachelor in technical management with a concentration in business information systems, a master's degree in cybersecurity, and I currently have the CISSP certification. It's the certified. It's a cybersecurity certification. We talked about it last week, and I just I'm taking a little bit of time talking about certifications because we will be talking again about certifications um, tonight. And specifically, we're going to be talking about certifications in IT in general and how you get the certifications and specific certifications for the three areas that we will be discussing tonight. But that's me. I will like to know who you are. So if you'll be so kind, just take your phone and just just scan that QR code. That's gonna take you to Mentimeter. And if you can please tell us your name, your first name is fine, your current occupation, if you want to share that, but most importantly, what you expect to get out of this workshop. So we're gonna take a couple of minutes, give everybody an opportunity because that's kind of gonna set the um, the pace of this presentation and what we need to concentrate and depending on what we have. So All right. So yes, again, if you can tell us your name, your current occupation, and what you expect to get out of this workshop. Appreciate it. And I'm going to be refreshing this page and sharing the results with everybody here and online. Thank you. Yeah, it takes a couple of minutes for you guys to respond and for the Mentimeter for the board to populate. But I think it is important. All right, Francisco, IT professional and business owner. I like to learn more about the career pathways. Well, thank you, Francisco. That is great. Again, these are the three pathways that we are going to be talking today, and we're going to go a little bit deeper into those. Thank you. And again, if you missed the other three we talked about last week, you can always go back and look at the recording of the presentation. So thank you so much for sharing that. Let's see, who else? Yeah, I'm excited because today, honestly, two of these areas are really, really growing a lot. This is something that um, we talk about on week one on our general overview as of these being two of the biggest areas. So Orlando, thank you. You are a marketer and you're looking for information. Great. I hope that you have any questions at any point. Let me know either here in person or if you're online, just post them on the chat and I'll get to them. Tanya, senior driver, and I would like more information about web and app development. Okay, well, you came to the right place here. We're going to be talking about that today. Thank you, Tanya. Gail, office manager, career paths for web development and cloud. All right, great, thank you. Mansi, AWS sales associate, interested in learning some more about a career in data, more specifically intersection between data analytics and product management. That is a very interesting. Thank you for that. Um, I think I mentioned this last week, and I believe that you were here last week. We did have a presentation, which also was recorded and is in our YouTube channel a couple of weeks ago for our guest speaker series, actually last month. And our guest speaker talked out specifically about product management. So I will recommend that you do look for that presentation because data analytics is huge in that area. Absolutely. Genzev, software developer and currently not working. Okay, need to learn more a career path. Great. Well, thank you. Thanks everybody that for responding, for sharing. That really helps me and helps everybody else to set up the pace for the presentation. Thank you so much. All right. So let's start. Let's get going. Let's go back to the presentation. All right. Let's start. Let's start with careers in data. We had a couple of people here interested in data. And first of all, we are going to be talking a little bit about the common functions. But before we even get into that, I mentioned that this is one of the areas that is growing a lot in IT. And the reason is kind of quite obvious. The reality is that we're producing a lot of data. We personally, as companies, we are producing data every day. We produce more data than the day before. That's a fact. I don't have the exact numbers, but these numbers are just mind-boggling, the amount of data that we are producing. Now, is all that data good? In reality, it's not. And that's why one of the first common function that we have here is data mining. And like the name implies, data mining is very similar to mineral mining in the sense that, in order to get, like, let's say that you're mining for gold or platinum or whatever it is, you know that you have to take a lot of material and then you have to sift through it. And most of it is actually not good. You're looking for gold, you have to take like half a mountain to get, I don't know, a couple of kilograms of gold. So that's the same thing here with data. I mentioned that we are producing vast amounts of data, but most of that data is actually not usable. We are looking for those little gold nuggets. So that's what data mining does, all right? So you are separating the unvaluable or just garbage data from the valuable data. Okay, so that's the first step. That is the first common function. And then once you have gotten those little gold nuggets, then you need to go to data analysis. What they mean, because gold by itself, yeah, is a precious material, but you need to work it into something, right? You need to make a jewel, you need to make a circuit, whatever it is that you're using the gold for. The same thing here. You need to take that data and kind of organize it so it makes sense. So now it is usable. You are turning it into something. That something in this particular context is that you're turning the data into information. All right. So that's the first step, and that's what data analysis do. And the job that we are going to be talking about in this particular area, we're going to be focusing on a particular job description, and that's going to be of the data analyst. By the way, just like last week, for each one of these areas, we're going to be talking about some of the job titles that are within the area, but we're going to be talking or concentrating in one job specifically. And that job is most likely what is considered the entry-level job in that particular area, okay? So as you can see, data analysis is that first step, and that is the job that we are going to be kind of focusing for this particular area, all right? The data mining is done mostly by machines and AI. We talked about AI. We've been talking a lot about AI, and definitely AI, it's having a lot of effect in a lot of different areas, and data is actually one of those. And we're going to be talking a little bit more about how AI is affecting these data jobs. So the next common function is statistical analysis. So once we have turned that data into information, we need to now make it into something more so that it can be useful in order so you can predict, so you can use it to make predictions and to make decisions, all right? And that is done through that statistical analysis and predictive modeling. So that's when that information becomes something else. It becomes intelligence, all right? So as you can see, that's how that process goes. So you can imagine that you have data. So you have accumulated a lot of data from your customers, and then you have sifted through. Now you have organized it, so now you have information. After going through the process of statistical analysis and predictive modeling, now you can make decisions. For example, you can say, okay, last quarter we sold, if it's a car company, we sold X number of vehicles of this particular model, this particular color, in this particular area. So we are predicting, and then you take into consideration other factors, external and internal as well, and say, well, with the way that the economy is going, the purchasing trends for consumers are going, I think that we can sell X numbers of this vehicle next year. So we need to kind of plan for that production, either reduce it or increase it, right? So that's how the data is absolutely useful. And that's just one example. Every organization uses data to make decisions. And that's why it's so important and so valuable. With that said, the last common function is going to be that data governance. And that has nothing to do with actually analyzing and processing and organizing the data. That has to do with more like, what do we do with this data? How we protect it? How do we need to keep it? And there's laws, regulations that sometimes come into play with this, privacy laws. And, how this information needs to be kept. For how long does it need to be kept? Most importantly, who owns this information? Because again, going back to the very beginning, when I said that we are producing vast amounts of data, a lot of this data, we are giving it away for free. I mentioned this is how you can get a Google account, not one, two, or as many Google accounts really as you want. And you have free email, free storage space, and all these services for free. Well, it's not free. You're paying them with your data. But that means that, is that data yours? Is that Google's? Whose data is that, right? So who owns that? And how is your privacy being protected? So that's the data governance piece. And there's a lot that goes into that. Some is like, again, regulations. There's going to be also ethics and reality. So, all right. So any questions about any of these before we go and we talk specifically about jobs in this area? All right. No, good. Okay. So couple of things before we move on. I mentioned AI and how AI is impacting this area. Um, there's a lot of, I guess, a lot of people is scared, right? Because they're like, AI is taking a lot of jobs. Yes, it will, but it will create other opportunities. We've been talking about this in the last couple of sessions. But talking specifically how AI is impacting the data piece is going to impact, believe it or not, a little bit of the data analysis jobs. And that data mining, for the most part these days, is being done by automation. All right. So that data is just being collected, and then it's just that really doesn't take a lot of human intervention, honestly. The data analysis piece is where you need to start sifting through that. And like we mentioned, why AI is becoming so popular in a lot of different areas is, again, because AI never tires. It can work 24/7. It usually doesn't make mistakes, especially if you are giving them an AI a repetitive task that it needs to do over and over and over again. As humans, if we do something 1,000 times, chances are that we are going to mess up a couple of times, right? AI, it's very good at that, not messing up and doing something repetitive over and over and over again. So, and that's part a little bit of what data analysts do. They have to go through a lot of data and trying to find those little gold nuggets. So that part may be affected somehow by the AI. But remember that regardless of what AI does, they still need human intervention. A human still is going to need to go through that data that AI thinks is good data and verify that it's indeed good data, right? And maybe go to a little bit sample some of the data that it was discarded by AI to see if it was really garbage or is something that is actually usable. So it's not a complete loss. It's just that now you need to work on a little bit of a higher level, right? So that's number one. Second, about jobs in data. We've been talking about in this series that the target audience for these workshops is people that is either trying to get into the IT industry or people that is trying to um, switch a career from whatever they are into IT, right? So last week when we talked about networking and support and cybersecurity, you can see that there was somehow kind of a linear path that you can start in IT, maybe start like, being a help desk. And I talked to a couple of you after that. I said, yeah, a lot of people started in support and then started branching, either going to networking and then either cyber or other areas, right? So that's kind of like a path, not necessarily linear. It was the case for me, as I told you, my own personal experience. I know a lot of people that didn't happen. But that's basically kind of going into IT and then you can grow into IT. Data is one of those areas that you don't necessarily need to be into IT to get into data. As a matter of fact, I think that data is probably one of those fields that is a great field to switch from whatever career you are into IT. And I'm explaining why. So we talked about how everybody, all organizations are using data to make decisions, right? So I had a lot of people that are really, really knowledgeable in their areas of expertise. Let me give you an example. I did these uh, workshops, I think it was last year, and I met a gentleman who is in the health industry. So he's very knowledgeable about patient data and how it needs to be processed and protected and all that kind of stuff. And he's like, but I want to start getting more into the data analytics piece. And that is a perfect example how you go from one career and then you can kind of jump into this without having been or having to have a ton of knowledge in IT. All right. Last week we talked about like how, for example, getting into cyber can be a little difficult because it really, in reality, you need to have a lot of knowledge, right? But for this one, you are bringing knowledge to the field, right? It's just a marriage of being an expert in your area and using the data tools. Okay, so it's kind of like a good way. So I think that there's another area that you can think about if that's what you were thinking. And again, this is important in the financial sector. This is important in the health sector, education, anywhere. You know that data is required, that vast amounts of data are required to make decisions, right? So, all right, so let's talk a little bit about job titles. And then again, I talked about data analyst probably being that entry level job in the data area. And then we have data architect, data engineer, data scientist, and a database administrator. So let me start with the database administrator because that was the only data job that it was available, I don't know, 20 years ago when all our data was in proprietary or in-house databases. So who handle all the data? The database administrators or the DBAs. There still are some out there, all right? But that's the original kind of like data job. Then that got turned into data analyst, okay? And so the difference between, like, let's say, a data analyst and a data scientist is if we go back to the common functions, the data analyst perform that second function, right? But the data scientists do the statistical analysis, the predictive modeling. There's a little bit more skill set that is required for that. There's going to be algorithms, there's going to be mathematical formulas, and other stuff, probabilities, stuff like that. So those are the data scientists. Then you have your data architects and your data engineers. And this is the people that basically kind of, depending on the organization, do a couple of different things. They are the ones who are in charge of how this data is organized, where is it maintained, where is it being kept. And this is also where it starts going into other areas of IT, which is the cybersecurity. How are we securing this area, this data, right? Are we compliant with the different laws, regulations? Are we following the spirit and the letter of the law? What are we doing, right? And at the end of the day, are we outside of just complying with the law? Are we doing this because we are a responsible organization that we are trying to keep our customers, our clients, our employees' data safe, right? How many times have you heard XYZ company got a data breach? How many times have you gotten an email saying, we know that you dealt with company XYZ and they had a data breach and now they're offering you free credit monitoring, et cetera, because your information got exposed. So it's that problem. That data is really the valuable nugget into the company's assets, and of course that's going to be something that is always going to be tried to be attacked and etc. So, anyways, all right. So let's go a little bit deeper into that data analyst position. All right. And again, for those of you who were here last week, you know more or less what this graphic looks like. But for everyone else, basically, let me explain what we're looking at here. Okay. This is the median salaries for the data analyst in the United States. So this is for the whole United States, including Alaska and Hawaii, as you can see. All right, and this is the average. And I want you to understand what that $70,000 is actually saying. What it's saying is that that is the median salary from all the states. And as you know, there's going to be states with higher cost of living, this being an area that falls into that category. So there's going to be paid more, and there's going to be states or areas with lower cost of living where the salary is going to be less. But not only that, this is also the average salary from somebody that is just starting and somebody that is probably been in that position up to the mid-level. So I would say anybody from 0 to 3 years of experience, okay? So with that said, that's what $70,000 per year represent. Now, in this area, I will say that a data analyst with some experience, 1-2 years of experience, is going to be doing a little bit more than that, especially because of the cost of living and what it is in this area. I expect that even if starting, a data analyst should be around $80,000 minimum. Okay, and again, this presentation will be emailed to you guys. So if you want to dip a little bit deeper, you just click on the link that says Source ZipRecruiter, and then you can adjust it for this area, for this state, for the whole world, for whatever you want. But that's how I did it Okay. All right. Now let's look at the job projection for this particular, the job outlook for this particular position. All right. So we are looking at a growth job, a growth in this particular area for 11%, which is not bad. But this is only for this particular position, for the data analyst. Remember that we looked at those other jobs, the data scientists, the data architects, the data engineers, etc. And I will also include here, again, because as we talked last week, a lot of companies do not have their own security department, so their security people is spread into other departments. So there could be somebody that is taking care of the data that is actually in this area and not in cybersecurity. All right. So about 108,000 jobs are projected over the next decade. These are new jobs. Okay, we're talking new jobs. So the current jobs number is actually going to grow by another 108,000 in the next 10 years. All right. Some people is going to move on to either different areas or they're going to be promoted. So that it's these are new jobs. And the salary has actually increased 8%, okay, in the last 5 years. So not a whole lot, but it's at least keeping with inflation, right? It's not going backwards. And okay, about 60,000 people currently employed in the United States with that particular title, but but look at that. That if you look at this, all these numbers, I think that the number that is the most impressive here is that almost 150,000 job openings for this. Okay, so again, it's not the hottest career out there, but there's a ton of people looking for data analysts. So opportunity, right? Okay. All right, now let's talk about, okay, now we talked about what a data analyst does, how much a data analyst makes, and what are the job prospects. But now let's talk, okay, so you said, okay, well, this is sounding interesting. What do I need to be a data analyst, right? So remember last week, we talked about, we're gonna talk about both hard or technical skills and also the soft skills. If you joined us last week, guess what? The soft skills are gonna be exactly the same for all of these areas. And we're gonna go a little bit more into the next slide, into those. We're gonna explain them once, and because they apply to all of them. But for this particular area, okay, these are usually the minimum skill set that you are gonna need for this is that you're gonna need to have good skills, especially in Excel to start with, and then data visualization tools. Microsoft Power BI, Tableau, these are the different companies that are really the biggest companies in the data visualization area, I'm sorry. So what is data visualization, right? So data visualization is, again, we've been talking about how much data and how that data is analyzed, but when you need to present this data, what is the best way to actually make it so people can easily understand it? Is in a graphical format, right? Pie charts, graphs, bars, and all that kind of stuff. That's how people understand. People really can catch that in that area. So that's what data visualization does. And these, again, when you're putting a lot of the Excel can do a little bit of that, obviously, but Excel is limited in the sense of it cannot handle very large amounts of data, right? So for that, you need more professional tools, and that's where Power BI is one of the ones that are being the most, one of the skills that are being sought after in this area. Tableau, it's a Canadian company that they started actually making hardware, and then they started making software, and that's where they have become really, really big at. So that's the second one, I will say. All right, the third one, SQL or SQL, is pronounced either way. That stands for Standard Query Language. So I am betting that most of you have used SQL at some point, even if you don't know it. If you have ever made a query in a database, like let's say when you were learning Access or something, if you were made a query to create a report, you made it in SQL. Yes, sir. Okay, that's a very good question. So the question was like, is this like Salesforce and so Yes and no. So SQL is a language, and we're going to go into that. But when you were talking about data visualization, these are tools that help you with that. But actually, Salesforce is a completely different system that utilizes data, but it's a different system. When we're talking about data visualization, there's are systems that allow you to present the data for reports or for whatever you want to people. Salesforce, on the other hand, is more of a CRM or a customer relationship management system. It's a system in which you input every single touch point that you have had with the customer. So when I enter your name in a CRM, I know who has talked to you, when it was the first time that we talked to you, and what have we done with you, either as a school or either as a company. So that's the difference. But then again, all these systems you bring a very good point, because all these systems are driven by data. So that's very good. No, go ahead. So again, these are just different tools. Excel, it's just a flat database. All right. Excel, we are all familiar with Excel. Excel is just a spreadsheet. That's basically what is called a flat database. And it's called flat because it's two-dimensional. It's just like those rows and columns. That's what it is. And then you can do a lot with that. But a real database is when you have several of these tables and they are connected somehow, all right? So they are stacked on top of each other. So you can cross-query not just the one Excel spreadsheet, but you can query other spreadsheets or the collection of a spreadsheet. So that's what a database is, right? But yeah, these are all still tools that are necessary. So SQL is the language that all databases use or understand. Now, there's different flavors of SQL. There's MySQL, MS SQL, and then there was the Oracle SQL, but they are all very, very similar. Again, so when you're talking to databases, the only language that they understand is their particular flavor of SQL. So that's why we put this here. Now, the next two are actually languages, programming languages. One is Python and the other one is R. And let me tell you what the difference between those two are. So Python is a language that started being as a programming language. And by programming language, what I mean is computer language that is designed to create applications or programs, right? But it quickly developed in something else. Python right now is used more as an scripting language. And let me explain to you what a scripting language does. Again, I think that most of you have created a script at some point. If you ever created like a little script that runs into that command line, that is actually called a script. Basically, it's a statement that you can use over and over and over again, and then you can modify it and apply it at different scenarios. So that's what Python is. Python is a very powerful language and is specifically used for the data analytics piece, because that's how you will sift through that data. That's how you sift through that mountain of data, is that you need to start, this is the sift. This is how you start applying those filters, and then you make the statement more and more complex so you get better and better data. Again, Python is one of those skill sets that a lot of people, I have a lot of questions. Do I need to learn Python? I'm like, well, if you are trying to get into data or cybersecurity, I will say yes, because of the scripting properties of Python, not the programming. Python is, I've seen Python being used for programming, but that's not its forte anymore. It started being as a programming language, but Python is now used mostly specifically for scripts, both in cyber and in data. The next language is Python is open source, by the way. So, but the next language is a proprietary language. It's called R, and R is a language that again is used in mathematics a lot for calculations, and it's used in data analytics with data scientists. Remember when I told you that they need a little bit of higher skill? That's what I was referring to. R is a language, again, that is used for a lot of different things here at Montgomery College. It's actually, we use R for some of the math classes, but in data analytics, you use it to create those algorithms. So it's kind of similar to Python, but this is actually a programming language. And then we talked about machine learning and AI. We talked about how it's being used and kind of the skill set and how you can compensate by what machine learning is going to do for you, but what is you still need to do for machine learning, right? And artificial intelligence. Okay. If there's any questions at any point, please let me know, right? All right. So let's move to the baseline again. And remember, when I say baseline, this is what in my experience, in my opinion, when you're looking for these jobs, this is what most likely the employers are looking for. It could be less, but it could be more, right? So, but then again, let's just go a little bit against this kind of like review these soft skills and why they are important. And we're going to do it only once because this slide is going to repeat in the other two areas as well, the exact same things. So last week and even on week one, we talked about communication and why that is so important. Like I've been saying, IT is no longer a separate department in any organization. It's now a business process, right? It's basically you cannot do anything without some kind of technology. So it's not any longer the department that did that something very specific that nobody talked to, or a lot of people that went into IT because they were hoping that they won't have to talk to nobody. Unfortunately, that's not the case. If anything, IT people need to talk to everybody, really. These days, you work in IT, you need to talk to other departments, clients, you need to talk to higher ups, you need to talk to customers, users, students, anybody. So you need to have these strong communication skills. I think I mentioned this last week. I think it was a little over a year ago. We had people here at the Ignite Hub, and they were representing like chambers of commerce from like all over Maryland, right? So there were people representing Chamber of Commerce for Rockville, for Montgomery County, and from this area. And they were just meeting with some of the employers here in Montgomery County, and they were asking, "What do you guys need? What do you guys need when you're looking for, employees?" And believe it or not, the thing that they kept on saying is like, "We need people that have these soft skills." They were saying that, and that to me it was a big surprise because I thought they were going to be talking about very specific hard skills, and they did talk about some technical skills, but believe it or not, they said we need people that is better at communication, that is better at organization, and we're going to go through all that. But I think that's it is important. So, like I told you last week, the easiest way for you to see or to compare your current skill set, both hardline and soft skills, um, against what the employers want, is for you to make a skill assessment. And that's quite simple. Basically, you go and look for the job that you are trying to do, and then you look for 4 or 5 different postings in different job boards, and then you start looking at the commonalities and you say, okay, looks like that everybody wants A, B, C, D. And then you go like, okay, I have A, I have B, I have D, I think I need to work on C or whatever it is. That's how you do it. Okay. So again, if you're lacking any of these, again, there's a lot of help out there of how you can become better at any of these things, but these are very important. So organization, again, like I mentioned, in IT, regardless of the area that you are, you're usually going to be doing, or you're going to be hit with 5, 6, 10 different things at the same time. And you need to be able to organize yourself and saying, this takes priority. This can wait a little bit, but don't forget about it, right? I mentioned last week about, trying to be like a triage nurse, that you need to understand that you get 2 patients at the same time complaining of the same chest pain. You need to kind of figure out which one needs surgery and which one just needs to sit down and relax for a little bit, right? But that requires this skill that you need to figure out which one I need takes priority, what needs to be addressed first, what can wait a little bit. And that goes hand in hand with analysis. And analysis is just the capacity to take a problem and look at the possible root causes of the problem and the possible solutions. And that's what, at the end of the day, is analysis is, and how long it's going to take, what kind of assets is going to take for me to resolve this issue. And I mentioned this one because this is very important, especially in IT. I'm going to repeat this. I said last week that at the beginning, when I was talking a little bit about myself, and I gave you, these are my current degrees, my certification, whatever. One thing that I've always said is like, of everything that I have learned, and I learn every day, by the way, about 50 or 60% I learned in school. The other I had to learn by myself. And that is very true when you're working in IT. The technology changes so fast that you constantly need to learn, and you need to be able to learn by yourself, to research and to learn properly by yourself. If you're relying that somebody's going to teach me all these things, yes, it's possible, but in a lot of cases, you need to learn something really quickly. You don't have the 3, 6 weeks for somebody to teach you that. You need to learn something in 2 days, right? So that is a skill that is very, very important. And last but not least is interpersonal uh, or on the job, right, Francisco? Thank you. That's how you learn. You learn on the job. That is correct. Um, and the last one is interpersonal, which is that capacity of just being personable, right? I mean, communication is a great skill, but at the end of the day, again, with IT being a business function, you need to be able to collaborate with a lot of different people, right? And you can only be successful in your job if you're capable of cultivating and developing good relationships with other people. Now, are you going to be able to develop a relationship with everybody that you work with? No, we are humans, and we have our things and quirks. But that's that particular skill. You being able to work with other people, right? And not being the person that, oh my gosh, no, I don't want to work with him. I don't want to work with her. You don't want to be that person, right? And that's what this means. So, questions, comments about this. Actually, I believe that we can do that in our next slide. And let's do so. Why don't we go to take a minute and again, if you want to participate, let's try to do that in the Menti. And yeah, let's see what we come up with. All right. All right. All right. And let me just, for our guest here in person, thank you so much. So, what was covered in this section? What stood out for you, if you want to share? And are you interested in a career in data? And if so, why? Why do you think it's interesting? Or why do you, where, or just use this board also if you have any questions in general about this particular area that we just finished covering. All right, just a beginner level understanding of the different components. What stood out was the point about self-learning. Okay, well, thank you. I think, yes, again, I sometimes we come to these things and we found a little morsel that we were not expecting. So thank you for sharing that. I think that it is interesting and it's very important. Um, and again, I think that this data field is big, is growing. There's a lot of potential. And again, to me, the most potential in this particular field is for people that already know they're in a particular industry and they know their area very well, and now they want to switch to go into IT a little bit. This will be a really good way to go into that, because this don't require to have that vast knowledge that I was talking about last week of networking, of security, or anything like that. But okay, thank you for sharing. So let's move on. Let's move on and let's continue with our presentation. We still have some stuff to cover, and so much appreciated. Let's go. Sorry, that's not what I wanted. Apologies. All right, now we're good. Okay, so let's talk about careers in cloud. All right, and this is the other area that is seeing a lot of growth. And Why is that? For those of you who were here on week one, we talked about that cloud is an area that is growing for a lot of companies because, and I think that we had a slide that's saying that most companies, like about 50% of companies, have at least two or more cloud services or cloud providers. And why is that? Main reason of this is about 20 years ago, everybody used to do everything in-house, right? Let me give you an example. Here at Montgomery College, we used to run our own email servers here, right? We had our own Exchange servers, and so we had the physical servers, and we had people that were Exchange administrators, and then they were the provision accounts, closed accounts, and they gave us like a meager 100 megabytes size inbox, but because again, the space was something kind of precious back then, right? But then that become something that it was we couldn't manage anymore because we decided to give email to students, and in order to manage that, we needed something that was flexible, right? So this is the reason why we switched to Office 365, like 90% of companies these days have done. And the reason being is because, again, you are taking that, basically, you are outsourcing a lot of your IT to people that can provide it to you on a flexible basis. Okay. You can call Microsoft. Microsoft charges per account per month. So you pay as you go, basically. And that's the beauty of the cloud. And then if I need to increase 100 or 1,000 accounts, I just call Microsoft and say, I need 1,000 accounts. I said, no problem, done. While for us to do it in-house, to grow that will require planning, money, space that you, and expertise that you may or may not have. That is the main reason, in a nutshell, of why cloud is another growth point for a lot of organizations, right? And again, when we talk cloud, before we go into it a little bit more, honestly, the big player, it's Amazon Web Services, or AWS. And Microsoft has caught up a lot with them, and now they're Azure cloud, and they put everything, all of the products are basically in Azure. So now that they're basically at the same level, and then you have upcoming cloud services like Google Cloud and Oracle Cloud, etc. But a lot of people have different, data and tenants in different clouds. So let's talk about some common functions. So with that introduction, I think that this is going to make a little bit more sense. So first of all, you need to determine the need for the cloud technologies for the client and organization. So what can we, or what do we need to put it in the cloud, right? And then what is the best service for this? All right. I already mentioned a couple of different things. So which one is the best way for us to go? Do we go with Office 365? Do we go with Google Docs? It depends on what kind of organization you are. You are a professional organization, Office 365 is going to make more sense for you. You're an educational organization, probably Google Cloud is going to be really good for you. So it depends on your need and what kind of organization you are, but that needs to be determined, right? And then, okay, so now you have, contracted those services with this company. So somebody needs to manage those services, and you need to manage the data across multiple cloud environments. Again, because you're not going to only be having something here. It's going to be 2, 3, 4 different data cloud providers that are providing different things for you. It could be a storage, it could be applications, it could be infrastructure. And that's the other thing about the cloud, that these companies do not provide a single service. They can provide you software as a service. They can provide you infrastructure as a service. They can provide you security as a service. There's a lot of things that they can provide you. So it depends on what you want. So somebody needs to manage, and then you need to maintain. Maintain means a couple of different things here. It means that it is mostly transparent to your users, meaning to them, they don't care where the data is. They need to access it when they need to access it. And it needs to be given access to the correct people. They don't care if the data is in your basement or if it's being maintained in the Google service in Ireland. They don't care. They need to access it, and that's the maintaining piece. And then ensuring that system service components and code run smoothly. there's also one more piece here, which is you need to secure these things, all right? And I always say this is also the other intersection with cloud and cybersecurity. This is the easiest way to the one analogy for you, all right? So basically, it's like renting an apartment, right? Uh, you rent an apartment, and the apartment complex gives you a key, right? And then if you leave the door of your apartment unlocked, is it the tenants? Is there a problem if you get robbed? If somebody goes into your house and robs, takes your data, takes your valuables? No, it was your fault. They gave you a key. You just didn't lock your door, right? You left your window open. So you need to secure these things too. For the most part, these cloud environments are quite secure. If there's any breaches, it's because the tenant has not secured it properly. All right. All right. So let's talk about example job titles. And in this particular one, the cloud specialist is going to be kind of like the entry level job here. But then again, you have your cloud architect, cloud engineer, and systems engineer. Again, that before there was all these stuff going out of, out of our organization when things were done in-house, everything was done in-house. The people that took care of this is the systems engineer. There's still system engineers in a lot of organizations, and there's a lot of organizations that do not have personnel that specializes in cloud and cloud only. Most likely, your system engineers are going to be doing both in-house and cloud stuff. All right. So that's still a very relevant title that kind of falls into this particular area. All right. And then cloud architect and cloud engineer. Again, it's two different areas. The cloud architect is the person that kind of goes, okay, our data, or this is how our system is going to be built, or this is how I envision, and this is how they should connect. The engineer or engineers are the people with the expertise that make that happen. All right. So just like in the Civil War, the architect has the idea of what the building is going to look like, what materials, but the engineer takes those blueprints and actually builds the thing, right? So that makes sense. All right, so now that we know how to look at that graphic, we are looking at the cloud specialist, right? And as you can see, that median salary is 86,000. Sounds about right for this area for somebody that is, somebody going into the field with a little bit of experience. So, and then you can go higher than that. And like I mentioned last time, the real money in any of these things is when you go into management, because all these areas obviously are going to need management as well, right? So let's look at the job outlook. Okay, now 10% job growth. Okay, that's pretty decent. 83,000 new jobs on top of the ones that we already have. System specialists, okay, increased 9%. Again, not super high, but not too shabby. Okay, about 32,000, but 127,000 active system and specialist application openings. So they're looking for people that can do this for you. They're looking for system engineers that understand the cloud and have certifications in the cloud so they can start migrating some of your stuff to the cloud. And we're going to talk about that. All right, hard and technical skills. Cloud service platform knowledge. I already kind of mentioned this when I mentioned there are different vendors. Everything works under the same basic concepts. Like I mentioned last time, basically everything runs on computer networks, and networking is networking regardless of how you do it. Unfortunately, you will think that all of them use the same type of ways to create the cloud. No. Amazon does cloud in their own particular way. Azure does its own thing. You will think that these things will talk to each other seamlessly. Not necessarily. So you need to understand what is the different service platforms, all right? Database management and SQL, again, because again, there's a lot of data. A lot of people is actually putting a lot of data in the cloud, right? They are using cloud services for storage space or for management. Programming languages, again, like Python, JavaScript are the same as we saw last time for the same kind of reasons, because a lot of these requires automation, and Python is great at that. JavaScript is great at that. It's another scripting language, like the name implies, JavaScript. And then application programming interfaces. What are these, or APIs? So we talked about like all these different systems, right? How do you think that they talk to each other? You gotta create these little connectors, this for lack of a better term. That is what an API is. An API is something, is an interface that can connect to these similar systems, okay? So they can talk to each other. And this is, again, going back to, this is how you make things transparent to the user, all right? It's through those things. DevOps. DevOps is important here. DevOps stands for development operations. And this actually started, believe it or not, as methodology for software management, for software development. But now it has been applied to a lot of different areas, because when you have a project, a lot of those concepts can be applied, can be done with using this methodology. So you're going to see that in a lot of job applications, a lot of job postings saying we would like somebody that can do DevOps. Linux, we talked about why Linux is very important last week in cybersecurity and networking. Here, kind of the same thing, because a lot of the systems in the cloud, and actually a lot of also systems that rely on these tools run on Linux servers. The baseline of all these tools sometimes is Linux, and then security concepts, okay? Again, we talked about that last week, and why having an understanding of security is important these days, because, like I mentioned, in the past, people used to build computers, systems, networks, applications, and then think about securing them after the fact. That's now not how you do things, because that's a recipe for failure. Basically, now you're building any of those things, you need to start thinking in the design phases of how you're going to make them secure. And in order to do that, you need to understand these security concepts, even if it's a high level, all right? You don't have to have a master's in cybersecurity or anything like that, but you need to understand these concepts, all right? Soft skills, same. It's just the application changes a little bit, but they are exactly the same. Right, so let's do a little bit of Menti, and then we're gonna take a little break, then we're gonna come back and wrap this up. Okay, why don't we do the Menti? And yes, let's see if anybody's interested in a career in cloud. All right, much appreciated. Thank you. So again, of what was covered in this section of cloud, anything that stood out for you? Are you interested in a career in cloud? Why? What is that you find interesting? Do you have any questions? Please. Again, I think that this area is super interesting, and we're going to talk a little bit more when we go after we talk about the development careers, and then we talked about the certifications. I think that that is going to make a little bit more sense as far as, like, you know, why this area and how Amazon interested in net experiences. Yeah. So yes, again, I think that cloud, it's not, this is a good area of growth for somebody that, again, has been either a system engineer or somebody that maybe was either in support. Is a good growth area, is a good career path for somebody that is already in IT. I'm not saying that it's not possible to go. And I've known people that have gotten into cloud because they have gotten specific certifications. And that's what I was trying to say, that there's some employers are looking for specific certifications. A lot of them had to do with AWS. So it is possible, but again, I believe that you will be more successful if you have a good understanding of computer networks, at least, even if it's a high level understanding. But yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for that comment. Yes. So yeah, cloud seems more difficult to transition to. Is that correct? Yes. So I just addressed that. Thank you so much for that comment. So yes and no. Again, I think that cloud is a good step. It is the next step for a lot of people that is already in IT, either in support or networking. But again, I think that there's ways that you can get into it if you get the correct certification and if you have the correct knowledge. The most notable aspect was the number of skill requires. Yes, yes. And again, it's because you see you're trying to add systems to your infrastructure, right? And it's not only adding them, but connecting them, securing them, managing them. So yes, that is the reason why the skill set, and this is why the last comment is also very is very good because it's kind of difficult to transition if you don't have that knowledge. But then again, not impossible. I think it's easier for data, and as we're going to talk in the next section about web and app development, is also another area that you can transition without a whole lot of knowledge. Yes, I've come across jobs that demand specific cloud certifications. Yes, that I don't have. Some require specific cloud-based CRM certifications. Yes, that's exactly what I was referring to. Uh, Cloud is now there are so many different certifications in cloud that they rival, if not exceed, the number of certifications in cyber. And they can be a little tricky because in cyber, at least they're very descriptive of what it is for and who it is for. But cloud, again, because of the many different things, like I mentioned, there are certifications that are specific about securing AWS or securing Azure. And then there are certifications about CRM and stuff like that. So yes, there's a ton of them. So this is where it gets to the point of what makes sense. And we're going to be talking more about that. Yeah, you can have certifications in Salesforce and get a job almost anywhere. I will say that that is a correct statement for the most part. And the reason being is that Salesforce is being used in a lot of organizations for a lot of different things. However, there are a lot of different certifications with Salesforce. That's a little beyond what we're covering here, but it's not a bad thing to have. I am working as a junior network engineer and looking to choose a path in networking or cloud, and I have some Azure certifications. We are considering the AI growth. Okay, that is an excellent question. And with that, I think we're going to go into the break. But I love that question. And honestly, I don't really have an answer, a black and white answer for you on that one. I think that that is going to require a little bit of research. And this is an area, unfortunately, that you are going to have to take a little bit of a gamble here because with the AI, it's hard to predict where this is going, but you can make some informed and educated decisions. Thank you so much for everybody for your participation. This is great. I love when you guys, just share. So with that, why don't we take a 5-minute break? Okay, 7:04. Let's come back at 7:09. So thank you so much. I'm just going to pause the recording for now. Okay, we are back. Thanks, everybody. Next slide, please. All right, so now we're going to go and we're going to start talking about career paths in the web and app development. Okay, like I mentioned at the beginning, a lot of people will put these two into separate categories. But this is going to make sense to you a little bit when we talk about the skills. The skills are very similar, and the processes are actually very similar. So let's go to the next slide. Let's start talking about this. All right, so the common functions, and this is basically where it's for both paths is basically the same. You need to meet with clients to discuss the needs. Doesn't matter if it's a website, it needs to be revised, it needs to be built, it needs to be changed, or the same thing with an application. Are we building an application? Are we upgrading it? Are we changing it? What is happening? So you still need to meet with the clients. And the client can be yourself, all right? And then clients can be internal or external as well, right? And modify software programs or websites, same thing, could be modified, could be upgrade, could be create. The next part is is interesting. It's important because design or create application systems or websites. So this is in both of these paths, basically there are two sides to this coin, right? And the design part, it's a specific set of skill sets um, that doesn't necessarily translate to the other side, which is the engineering piece. Again, it's like the architect and the engineer. So the architect is very similar here to the designer, and that could be either for an app design or for a web designer. You come up, first of all, you need to come up not only with the idea, but why does this need to exist? Just like, my apologies, this thing was not secured properly. Okay, that's better. Sorry. So the first thing that an architect needs to kind of think about is like, why does this building need to exist, right? Why is the purpose of this building? Same thing with an application on a website. What are we doing this? What is the need? What need are we fulfilling with this? And then who's going to be serving? What is the population that is going to be using this? So that goes all into the design, which, by the way, I am going to say that here at the Ignite Hub, we are going to have, actually starting on Monday, we have boot camps that are open to the public, and we're going to have a boot camp for Intro to Coding. Again, starting next Monday. I think that one is sold out, but I think that we still have a couple of seats available for the design, Intro to App Design. And again, we do this here, and you can either do one or both because they are related, but that doesn't necessarily means that the same person needs to do both things. All right. So and again, once that is being flushed out and the design, the colors, etc., then somebody can write the programming code or write the create the website, right? So those are the two sides of the equation: the creation, the designing, and the engineering piece. And then again, now what that is the difference between, like, let's say somebody that is just a designer or is just a programmer and a developer, because a developer is the person that does both things, all right, and oversees the whole process. And that's why usually developers are the people who make the more money, because again, the skill set is a little bit more complete. All right, so why don't we go to the next slide? And again, job title. So we have software developer, computer programmer or application programmer, web designer, web developer, coder. So we talked about a little bit about the difference between those. All right, let's go to the next slide and let's look at the particular job. So okay, here I just took app developer because that's when people think about development, this is what they think, right? App development. So straight out of the bat, as you can see, the number is higher than any of the other jobs that we have discussed thus far. Why? I just explained the why. A developer is somebody that requires that complete skill set, both the design and the coding or the engineering part. Yes, sir. I think I saw that AI was able to build out your app. Very good question. So the question was like how AI is going to affect app development. Yes, again, I think that is going to be both an opportunity and also some low-level programming jobs. Remember, the position that we're looking right here is for a developer. All right. The jobs that AI is going to take, if any, is going to be those programmers, the people that is just starting to code. All right. So the people that create pieces of code. So AI is going to take some of that. But this is what is going to, because people still need to come and look at that code and debug it and make sure that is safe, that it's actually efficient, and all that kind of stuff. So AI can start doing kind of a little bit of the grunt work, but there's still going to be required people that understand and then comes and check that code. All right. Because yes, it is true. If you ask some of the, you know, this AI ChatGPT, hey, write me a program to do this. in this particular language, it can create you a simple program, but it's not going to be efficient and it's probably not going to be secure. And you still need to debug it because it may not function properly. So if you want something written well, a human still needs to come back and say yes. And as far as I know, AI is not yet very capable in designing. Okay, that is, you can ask AI, give me this, but what AI is going to do is the AI is going to just take whatever they know or the inputs and spit something out of the aggregation. But as far as like AI coming up with an original idea, I think that that's still long ways. All right. So yes, very good question. Very good question. And actually, there's been a lot of this is one of the areas that the alarm is being raised a lot. Actually, I read an article a few months ago questioning the value of the computer science degree. The computer science degree, it's been a mainstay for universities for the past 10 years. It's been like either number one, or number two, number three degree for most universities. So now they're questioning in the era of AI, how valuable is that CS degree? And it's a very good question. It's a very good discussion to have. I think it's valuable, but it's going to be valuable in a different way now. Or the skill set for somebody that just comes out of college is going to be a little different what the companies are going to start requiring. So again, it's all about being adaptable and you being able to work with the times and what's happening, right? But very good question. Thank you. So, all right, let's go to the next slide and let's look at the job outlook. Now, that one is looking much better, right? 21% projected. Why do you guys think is that? Because apps, people is still building and writing apps left and right. And actually, believe it or not, with AI, that is becoming even more of a thing because AI is not really building apps. AI is being built into apps. The way that AI is being used these days, AI, unless it's generative AI that it stands on its own, most AI is being built into other applications, right? So that actually is going to require for people, for programmers, to start incorporating these AI models, those LLMs, into their applications. Okay, does that make sense? So, okay, about 284,000 new jobs are projected. All right, now the salaries have increased 10%, which is not bad. About 600,000 people right now working as that, and they're looking for another 280. So good area of growth. Now, we also, the other part that I want to talk about this is like why this area is potentially an area that you can jump into, sorry, if not grow into from IT, right? So this is another area, just like data, that your expertise in a particular area could be very useful if your company is trying to develop, to increase, to improve their website or their applications, right? So that input could be also for the creatives that you can be a designer. Yeah, you still need to understand how applications work, but you are, at the end of the day, if you decide to be a web designer or an app designer, you don't necessarily have to be the person programming that, creating or coding that program, right? You can have people that do for you. But you still need to understand how a program is built and what are the capabilities and what are the limitations. Again, going back to the example of the architect and engineer, um, our student assistant here, she is going to be an architect, and she can tell you that as an architect, you can draw a plan for a building that is all made of glass, but no engineer is going to build it because they're going to say, you're crazy. I cannot build this. Their materials, glass is not a material that you can use structurally, right? You still need to make some compromises. So as an architect or as an app designer or web designer, you need to understand what are the limitations and the capabilities of the tools and the materials that you're going to be building this application with, right? That makes sense. So with that said, I think that a lot of the creatives have a good opportunity to jump into the design piece here and potentially into the coding piece as well. And that's why here at Ignite Hub, a lot of people is curious about this area, and that's why um, we have been doing these camps, and this is one of the main things that we do here, our summer camp for middle school students, the Montgomery Kent Code, and we have expanded that offering here also for adults because I think there's a lot of interest in this area on the app development. People want to try their hand. Everybody's talking about this coding, coding, coding. So come and try it. See if this is something that is you're interested in. Okay. Next slide, please. So now let's talk about. I have on this we have actually an extra slide. All right, because these are the hard and technical skills for the app developer, which I'm going to separate from the web developer, and you're going to see why. Some of them are going to be kind of the same. Some of them are going to be completely different. So this is for an app development. And no surprise here, a strong knowledge of programming languages. And when we say programming languages, these are languages that are used to create, to build applications, okay? So any language in the C family, all right? C itself is still being used, not as much. It's all the derivatives, like I call the children of C, that are being used. So you have C++, C Sharp, Objective-C, and then you have Python still, because you can use Python for programming. Like I said, it's not being used a lot for that, but it's good for certain applications. Believe it or not, last time I saw a program actually being written in Python was a program for some robots that we bought here at the college. The science department, one of the departments bought one of those. And when I look at the code, I was like, this is Python. Like, yeah, I was like, I've never seen something written in Python. So the operating system for the little robot, I was actually created in Python. So there is still usefulness. And then Java is huge. And Java is going to be also repeated for the next slide. But anyways, user interface design, UI design. Again, you need to understand modern UI design and how the people that is going to be interactive with your application, how is it going to be using it, and also considerations that have to be with people with disabilities, et cetera, et cetera. Backend computing, and that is important because yes, your application is the front part, right? This is how your um, the users are connecting to something in the back end, whatever that back end is. It could be a database, it could be another system, it could be whatever, but you need to understand how that connects to that. Cross-platform development. Again, that is important because when you're building an application, sometimes you just don't build one application unless you want to be exclusive for, like, let's say Apple, which is Swift. I forgot to mention Swift. Swift is Apple's language. So you're going to create any application for Apple, anything in Apple, doesn't matter if it's for the Apple Watch or the iPad, iPhone, whatever, is going to be written in Swift. Unless you are going to be a one-trick pony and say, I'm just going to develop for Apple, I only need to learn Swift, that's fine. Otherwise, you need to understand that your same program, your same code is not going to work for every single platform, right? And what platforms that make sense. And then the next one is important, product slash business management. I think that, and we're talking about developer. And remember that when I say developer is the person that does the whole thing, both the design, the engineering, or at least oversee the whole thing. Also the product case and the business management. Like I said, why is the reason for this application to exist? What is the plan to make this profitable? Who is it going to be serving? What is the potential? So yeah, I mean, it will be cool for you to create an application that you're very passionate about, but when you do the market research, it may be, it's a very niche application, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you create an application for you and your buddies, and you're happy with that, great. But don't expect to make money out of that. All right. So agile development. And that is another methodology that is being used a lot in development, both app, web development. It's being put a lot into job postings and testing and troubleshooting. So that's the last one, but not the least one, because when you are an app developer, trust me, 75% of your time is going to be spent on doing that, testing and troubleshooting and debugging. Okay. So designing, creating, writing the code is all fine, but then you need to test it and test it again, and then troubleshoot it, and then debug it, and then optimize it. So that's where it's going to be a lot of the time is going to be spent. All right, next slide, please. And so those are the hard skills for a web developer. Again, you're going to see some crossover and then some other new stuff. So here we have front and back end. All right. So what is front and back end? Front end, again, is your website. Okay. Is what your users are seeing, regardless of if it's in a phone, if it's in a laptop, if it's in a tablet, whatever it is. It's just they're launching a browser, they're going to the website. So that is the front end. That is that part. And for that, you obviously require a specific programming languages. And all web pages are programmed in HTML, which is not really a programming language, it's a markup language. That's what it stands for, hypertext markup language. And CSS, which stands for cascading style sheets. JavaScript, which is something that enhances the capabilities of HTML, even though HTML 5.0 is a lot more capable than 4.0. But that's basically building the website, right? Backend computing. And again, just like that's, what is this connecting to? What are the applications that is reaching in the back? If it's a banking application, it's a database, whatever it is. And for that, the number one language is still Java. Java is the programming language to create web apps, okay? Still the number one. But then again, Python still being used for certain things. And then there are other languages that are a little bit more specific, PHP, Ruby, Ruby on Rails, but Java is still the king there. UI and user experience design. Okay, so here it's a little bit different because it's how many times have you gone to a website that is especially government websites, they are famous for being outdated, difficult to use, navigation is terrible, you have to do 15 clicks to go back home. That's not a good user experience, right? So you need to create that. So that's why you need that part. Security and data protection. Again, here when you're talking web, this is where there's a lot of attacks that happen at this particular layer. So how are you protecting that website, right? How are you preventing it from stuff like SQL injection, or website hijacking, and goes on and on and on, right? And then again, testing and troubleshooting. So that's the commonality. All right, the next slide actually is the same thing, the soft skills. And on this one is actually, I was there to say that this, in this particular area, is even more important, right? All of this, because here is all customer driven. And sometimes the customer can be yourself, but it could be another department, it could be an external, internal customer, you name it. So that capacity of working with other teams, other people to organize, and especially here, the organization is a big piece. These are all run as projects. When you are talking development, doesn't matter if it's web development or app development, project management is huge. And I should have put, and actually, I'm going to make a mental note of myself to put project management on both of the prior skills slides, because this is all project management. It's project based. So, all right, let's go to the next slide. All right, and let's do the Menti. Okay, so again, I'm gonna ask you one more time to take a minute and of what was covered in this section, what stood out for you? And are you interested in a career as a web or app developer? I know there's a couple of people that have mentioned that they want to be app or web developers. I hope that this helps. We're gonna talk a little bit more about certifications in the next part and other useful resources. You need to refresh it after like a minute. Just give it a minute. I keep on refreshing it, and that's how it appears. So thank you so much for everybody that participates. It really makes the this really makes this a conversation. So interested in learning the basics of app development. Okay, again, I think that the development, it's the two pieces, right? The design and the coding. So you're interested in one or both. I think that the best thing that you can do is just give it a try. Give it a try. And again, here, again, the shameless plug here at the Hub, we are having these boot camps. The Intro to Coding boot camp is starting on Monday. I believe it's sold out. There may be still a seat or two open for the app design, which is starting in a couple of weeks. There are still a few. But if it's not that, you can always try to give it a try to see how you like it. Web or app developer is not only about coding, but also problem solving, creativity, user experience, and continuous learning. Thank you. You basically, even that's what I will. If anybody walked away with this section, that's what I would have loved everybody to walk away with. So thank you so much to whoever wrote that, because that's exactly what it is. I'm glad that that came true. So yes, well, we still have some more. Thank you so much for everybody that participated. Thank you. Let's switch back to the presentation. And thank you. That was a very good comment. Thank you so much. Again, and that's what I mentioned, that this particular area is probably a good area if you're in the creative side, that you can switch into this development piece, either for web design or app design. All right, let's go to the next slide. Thank you. Degrees versus certifications. This is going to be a little bit of a repeat for the people that were here last week, especially the next two slides, but bear with me, okay? So again, degrees versus certifications. More than 25% of IT professionals do not have college degrees. That's okay. But, that's the US Bureau of Labor statistics. Degrees are not required to begin a career in IT, but they are definitely going to be required for you to advance or to become into management. Like we said, IT is dominantly a skill and experience, skills and experience. If you look at job postings, the first things that they say is like, we need you to know A, B, C, D, and we need you to have 1, 3, 5, 10 years of experience in this. Yeah, I know. That's a different conversation, but that's what they want. They want skills and experience. All right, a different conversation on how we get to those. So what is the big difference? A degree provides a breadth of exposure to various aspects of IT as well as other areas. Like I said last week, when you are into a academic program, doesn't matter if it's an associate degree, bachelor's degree, whatever it is, you're gonna take those core classes, right? That is your major, whatever it is, IT, computer science, whatever it is, information systems, whatever it is, right? And then they ask you to take other classes, and some of these classes are English and math and social sciences and electives. Why? Because what they're a degree is trying to form a professional, somebody that has that knowledge in that particular area, but is also able to work in a professional environment. That's why these other classes are required, all right? So we're trying to form, or rather, educational institutions, higher ed institutions are trying to form professionals, all right? That's the idea behind getting a degree. Now, a certification is a lot narrower. This is not saying this person is ready to be a manager. This certification is, unless it's a management certification. The certification is saying this person knows this, or this person is capable of doing this, right? So it's narrower. Okay, so they are more specific about an area or a skill set. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah, next slide, please. So we're going to spend a couple of minutes here on this slide because I think it's quite important. And again, this is a little bit of a repeat for people that were here last couple of weeks. But let's start with certifications are often listed as either required or preferred on job postings and career positions. So this is where we go into, should I get a degree? Should I get a certification? I said, it depends. Depends on what you're trying to do. What is the job that you are trying to get next? Okay, and look at why they are requiring. So are they requiring a certification? Then yes. If everybody's saying we would like for you to have the A+ certification, then that's what you need to get. All right. So they're either required or preferred. All right. Then we're gonna jump to the third bullet point. We're gonna come back to the second one, but they can be vendor specific or vendor neutral. What does that mean? That means that when we talk about that certification can cover an area or a skill set or a path. So that kind of goes into that. So there are a lot of certifications that
let's say, that cover an area. And let's take Network Plus, for example. Network Plus by CompTIA, what it says or what it means for somebody that holds a certification, it rather tells an employer is like, this person has shown that they have knowledge about computer networks. Doesn't say Microsoft, doesn't say this, doesn't say Apple, says computer networks in general. They understand how computers network work, right? So that is vendor neutral. But there are other certifications that are vendor specific, and we're going to see a lot of those today. So those could be the AWS, right? So those are issued by the specific vendors. Amazon Web Services, and they have a ton now, all right? So these are basically, they're saying these are given by Amazon and say this person knows how to do cloud according to Amazon, all right? Or Cisco or Microsoft or Tableau or whatever it is, right? Python. And then we already covered that, can cover general areas of IT or can qualify working professionals in specific skills. Let's go back to the second point because I think that that's important. How do you get a certification, right? So to get a certification, they require preparation and training, passing a test, and continuing education credits, in addition to fees for testing and maintenance. Let's unpack that. So yes, in order to get a certification, most certifications, you just need to pass the test. How do you prepare to the test? All right. So a couple of different ways. In my opinion, you can either think, okay, I'm ready to take the test, and you just schedule the test, go and take it, and if you pass it, you're certified. Less than 3% of people, I think, are actually going to that bucket. Most people are either going to be into, I have a little bit of knowledge about this, or I have zero knowledge about this, right? So if you are in the, I have zero knowledge about this, so I want to learn and get the certification bucket, you have a couple of different options. My recommendation, take a preparation course in your local community college. It can be Montgomery, but all community colleges have an area that they offer non-credit classes or workforce development classes. Why do I recommend this option? One, it's going to be cheaper, it's going to be in the hundreds of dollars, and it's going to be a little bit more spread out. You will get time to actually learn the skill and to kind of digest the information, right? That's the best path. Then you schedule the test. The other path could be that there's a ton of technical institutes out there, nothing against them, but if that works for you, then by all means. But usually they are more expensive than your community college. They're going to be in the couple of $1,000s, and those classes are a little bit more compressed, 3-4 weeks, you know. So that could be in the bucket of I know a little bit, I just want to get this done fast because my job requires for me to get the certification in 3 months or whatever. So cases vary. Then there's the nuclear option, and that I recommend for very few people, and those are boot camps. Boot camps are the most expensive. We're talking $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for this. I have gotten my certifications to boot camps, but the college paid for those. Why did I take that path? Because I already knew the material. I just wanted to kind of review it. And then I also wanted for the instructor to tell me what to expect in the exam, and then to go and take the exam a few days after I did the boot camp. These are intense. These things go 100 miles an hour. They dump you the whole 1,000 pages of the book in 4 days, 5 days. Again, they're expensive, but then again, it works for certain people. It worked for me in my case. Doesn't work for everybody. So now you have passed that test, right? Great. Okay. Before there, you need to schedule the test, and that is a fee. There's a fee for that test. That fee could be anywhere from $100+ to over $1,000 for some of these GIAC cybersecurity certifications. So what happens if you don't pass the test? Do you get a second chance for free? No, you don't. Most tests you need to pass with 80% or better. So my recommendation is that there's a lot of practice tests. Do not go and schedule the test until you schedule at least at 80% on your practice test, right? So if you don't pass the test, that's okay. Don't worry. Usually you get a discount on the second try. Sometimes you have to wait a little bit before your second try. Sometimes they put you on the waiting list for like a couple of weeks or whatever it is before your second try. When you've passed that exam, now you're certified, right? Now I'm good. Yes, you are. However, you are not certified for life. That certification usually is good for 3 years. What happens at the end of those 3 years? Either A, you need to retake the exam, which is going to be a new version of the exam, or B, during those 3 years, you need to accumulate these CEUs or continuing education credits uh, to forego the exam. All right. And these can be completed depending the organization in a couple of different ways. You can take a class, you can teach a class. Me, I usually do a lot of webinars, and that's how I acquire my credit, so I can don't have to retake the exam. But there's a couple of different ways you can do that. Yes, sir. Yes, yes. No, I both. Actually, I've never. I could put this as for my CEUs, but I usually just watch webinars. Um, and this that's a very good question, because that goes into the next. Goes exactly into the next thing, because there's a fee. There's a maintenance fee. You need to pay a yearly maintenance fee for most of these certifications if you want to maintain it. Sometimes it could be $75. I think I pay 150 for the CISSP. What does this $150 give me every year? One of the things that it gives me is access to their portal and these webinars. So I can watch these webinars on demand whenever I want. And then after I'm done watching, it automatically submits a CEU for me. When I get my number of CEUs, I don't need to do anything. So that's part of that. It gives you some options, but that's usually. So now, to close this, a piece of advice. Certifications need to make sense for you right now, in the next 2, 3, 5 years, for the next job that you're trying to get. As you can see, these things take a lot of effort, a lot of money, a lot of maintenance. I've seen people that has 5, 6 different certifications after their name. I think that only makes sense if you are teaching them. As an employer, if you are trying to apply for a job, stacking is good, but I don't see stacking beyond 2 or 3 certifications being useful, and they have to be in the same general area. If I see somebody that has 8 different certifications in like 4 different areas, I'm like, what is this person trying to do?
About advancing AI, so AI is going to kind of feed at the cloud.
Very good. So that is good. So the question was like, what about something with AI? Yes. Again, if the certifications make sense, if they complement each other. So when you're thinking about your resume and what you're presenting to the employer, certifications are a part of that, right? As your knowledge. So it needs to complement your other knowledge, your other experience, right? So something with AI up and coming, and there are some AI certifications there. Maybe a base AI certification will be good enough, maybe something, but that could be it could be a good thing to have. It could be something good to stack on top of another certification. This is case by case type of situation. This is why we're going to recommend in a couple of slides career coaching. All right. So very good. Thank you. So that's about us certifications. I think that we cover more or less what they are. Now let's go next slide, because we're going to talk about specific certifications for the 3 areas that we have discussed today. And then again, there are a ton more certifications out there. This is just an example, or some of the ones that are like industry recognized. So you're trying to get into data analytics. The Data Plus by CompTIA is, again, a non-vendor specific certification. What does that mean? You get the Data Plus. Basically, it's saying to an employer, this person understands data structures, the different data vendors and how they do the different things, but it's not saying you're not being certified by any of those. For data, a lot of these certifications are going to be mostly vendor specific. And that's why you have, for example, your Power BI Data Analyst Associate is a very good credential to have. And then again, it's issued by Microsoft. The Tableau Certified Data Analyst by Tableau. These two are because, again, these are data visualization tools. And that's not the only one, because I know that now AWS has a ton of certifications, but this is AWS Data Analytics, and this is issued by Amazon. And this is an interesting one because this is how you do data analytics within the AWS cloud, right? Because not to go too deep into that, when you are doing data, one of the main concepts is going to be data structures, right? And the way that if you want to put your data in AWS because of their organization, their S3 buckets and stuff, the data structures have to be built one specific way in Amazon. And that's why that's that certification. Sir. No, go ahead. The CompTIA. Data Plus.
You mentioned a little bit ago about how you don't want to stack
But
different certificates, but all of these kind of have to do with data.
but in this case, this could make sense to stack. For example, if you don't have any other education in data, you don't have any education. You're trying to go into a career into data, and you have not been in IT. A Data Plus, plus then maybe the Power BI, stacking them makes sense. In this particular case, it makes sense. Or maybe the Data Plus and the AWS Data Analytics. So yes, very good question. Stacking makes sense in certain cases. This could be a perfect example of where stacking makes sense. Also, last week, a perfect example for stacking, when we talked about networking, having the Network Plus by CompTIA, and then having the CCNA, the Cisco Certified Network Associate, that stacking goes like peanut butter and jelly. It's like really good. All right, next one. So let's talk about cloud. And again, cloud, it's dominated by AWS. And this is just a little, they now have I think it's over 30 certifications, AWS. But the very beginner is the AWS Cloud Practitioner. That is kind of like, this is where you start with AWS, okay? You don't have to necessarily take that one. You can go into some of the higher ones without doing that one. But if you don't know anything about cloud, you just want to start with AWS, that's a good place to start. The cloud practitioner. And then you go to the next ones, and then there's now the security certifications, and they have a ton of certifications. But and then again, Microsoft now has their own certifications for Azure, specifically the securing cloud. So there, again, I think that when you're looking at what certification makes sense for you, is like, what job am I trying to make, and this type of industry or the company or companies that I'm looking for to apply, what kind of systems do they have? Okay, so it takes sometimes a little bit of investigation. Yes, sir. Yeah. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Not that I think there might be, but then again, I think that these are cloud is mostly driven by vendors. All right. Exactly. And AWS is the big dog here, right? And then they're just closely followed by Microsoft. And then now Google Cloud is making an impact. The good thing about Google Cloud, and I'm not saying that this is what you should get, but a lot of the certifications that Google offer are free because they're trying to get you into their system, into their environment. So if there's a possibility of a job that somebody that's using Google Cloud, I will get my free Google Cloud cert. But most people using AWS. I mean, that's just the reality of it. Next slide, please. Thank you. Good question. And these are software and web, and then there's a ton here too. So there's just a couple of, and then AWS makes another appearance here as well. But so entry-level Python programmer, and then we have two Python ones there, right? And then these are by the Python Institute. Again, these are neither vendor specific, neither vendor neutral. Basically, what this is saying is like the Python Institute, because this is an open source, Python is an open source language, and the Python Institute is a nonprofit that kind of like regulates the different versions of Python. Says, okay, yeah, they created these certifications. So they're kind of sort of like in between. And then certified developer by Amazon Web Services, again, because when you are developing for certain web applications within that has to run into the AWS system, you have to follow the way that Amazon does these things. So anyways, all right, let's go to the next slide. And we are getting to the end here. Let's do this Menti. And about certifications. So what stood out? Yeah, please advance the slide on the Menti, and then let's switch to the Menti. So what was covered in this section? What stood out for you, and what certification or certifications are most interested in, and why? Yeah, just click at the very bottom, says next slide. Thank you so much. And then just refresh it. Thank you so much. Wonderful. All right, so that's the one. And we're going to take a couple of minutes, and then we're just going to go to some stuff that I have recommendations for you. And thank you so much. So certifications is the big piece, I believe. IT certifications is a big thing. If you were here last week and we talked specifically about some certifications, and we even talked about the DoD 8570. Again, when it comes to certifications, there are literally hundreds of certifications in IT. So you do need to make a little bit of research. Last week I did mention, that's why I included the DoD 8570, because that's mostly for either support, networking, or cyber. If they're in that matrix, then that makes sense that to get any of those. But then again, it depends on what you're trying to do and what makes sense for your next job. And again, the other thing that I mentioned last week is if a certification no longer makes sense for you, let it expire. I told you that I used to have Security Plus, and that expired after I got my CISSP. Why? Because CISSP is considered a higher level certification in the same area. Why would I'm going to maintain both? All right, let's look at some of these. I'm most interested in data, some experience there. Okay, seems like a more smooth transition from, okay, great. I'm glad to hear that. Yes, so data is a good area to go into without having to have all that knowledge about computer networks and all that stuff. Data analytics, I'm interested in getting my CompTIA certification. Very good. I think it will complement my prior experience and make a more attractive candidate. Yes, when that Data Plus or that CompTIA Data Plus certification makes sense, is again for that particular candidate that is in an industry like, let's say, I don't know, healthcare, finance, whatever it is, and they're really good. They understand their area, the regulations, what it needs happening there, but they're trying to transition into the processing of that data. Because again, the Data Plus is vendor neutral, and then it kind of shows that this person understands how data structures are built and how data is analyzed, et cetera, et cetera. So another one that it can make sense, depending on your organization, it will be what data visualization tool are they using, and getting a vendor specific like Power BI. Thank you. Is how valuable, how valuable they are. Yes, thank you. They are improving technical knowledge and professional skills. I'm especially interested in certifications related to web and app development. Yes, thank you so much. So you got it. Basically, that's what certifications prove to an employer. It basically says this person has this particular knowledge. Now, before we move forward, and I appreciate all of your comments, one thing that I think is worth mentioning, repeating from last week, that the difference between knowledge and experience is that you can prove knowledge with a degree, with a certification. You prove experience by having applied that knowledge in some way, shape, or form. Doesn't have to be paid, doesn't have to be full-time. It is better if it's paid than full-time, but it could be volunteer work, it could be personal projects that you have worked on, personal interests, portfolios that you have created. So it's like, okay, I have the knowledge and I have to apply it by doing this. Okay? I hope that makes sense. Thank you so much for that input. We're going to go back to the presentation, and we're starting to wrap this up. I really appreciate your input, and it really helped me into driving this. So resources, let's go to some resources. All right, so I mentioned if you are trying to get the knowledge, you're trying to get a preparation course for any certification, I mentioned that my most recommended path for you guys, especially if you're trying to get that knowledge, is go to your local community college and get that preparation course. Here at Montgomery College, our sister organization, the Information Technology Institute, we are under the workforce development umbrella, the non-credit side. These are non-credit classes that are offered at different campuses and different modalities at different times of the year. This slide, it may not be the most recent one. They are actually doing some AI right now. So take a look at that. You can always go and look at our catalog and see what how they're planning for the spring. But that's one resource, okay? You're trying to get that knowledge. ITI here at Montgomery College is a very good one. Some of those classes actually are happening 2 rooms down the road. All right, next slide, please. All right, so I don't need to tell you, you're obviously here because you have found out the Ignite Hub. But aside from this, we offer a lot of other different things here that can be useful in your career search. I will recommend that you check out our guest speaker series. We have the Fireside Chat and the Future of Tech. And then again, these are hybrid and then they are free. Everything that we offer here is free. And these are professionals, okay? For these are guest speaker series, these are professionals that come and talk to our audience, either about their career paths, recommendations that they have, entrepreneurship, or specific technology and how that technology is being applied. So check out we do this in the spring and in the fall. We have a great lineup. We just had one this week on Monday. We had the Fireside Chat and Sherry talked to us about the portfolio approach and how you can position yourself better for employers and how you grow your career, not just based on performance on your job. Very good talk. So that kind of stuff. Then I already mentioned the coding and app design bootcamps that are happening next week and this month. We are going to have, it's going to be a little different title, but Tech Jobs in the DMV series. So it's going to be a series of workshops that specifically are going to go into how to better position yourself for people trying to get tech jobs in this area. And what are right now, how, not trying to scourge anybody, but right now is a little tough, but how you can position yourself better in a tough job market, right? And then we have career workshops and career coaching. This is something that I truly, truly recommend, specifically the last one. Career workshops, we here at the Ignite Hub, we have partnered with Career Catchers, a nonprofit organization. So they provide to them, we can provide these monthly career workshops, which are also in a hybrid format, both in person and online. And the topics are like, how to build a better resume or how to transferable skills, stuff like that. Again, for people looking for jobs. But the last one I think is super important, career coaching. And let's go to the next slide. Because career coaching is something that we offer here is a one-on-one career coaching, all right? And if you are interested, you will work with our career coach, with Chris, and they will help you to create a specific individual career path for you, depending on where you want to go and where you are right now, all right? So we've been talking about the skills, what skills you have, what skills you need to get, where is it you're trying to get, and then give you some resources on how we can get there. There's, again, this presentation will be sent to everybody. If for whatever reason, when you're trying to schedule an appointment with Chris, if you cannot, if he says that it's full, send me an email and then I will put you in touch with Chris directly, okay? Then I think that we have, if we can just switch now to the browser, to Chrome. I have 2 tabs in Chrome that I want to share with the audience. And then we'll come back to the presentation and close this up. Thank you for your patience and trying to be respectful of your time. Yes, but you need to stop sharing that one and start sharing now. So the first tab, there you go. First tab is TechMap. TechMap is another, it's something that we have here at the college, and this was a grant. And just to be honest with you, this is the last, it was a grant to the Department of Labor, I believe. And unfortunately, the grant is running out. We have one more go around. And actually, the interviews are going to be happening here at the Hub. But this is basically, you can get free certifications. And for the people that was interested in the Data Plus certification, you can get that for free. So check it out. If you go to the montgomerycollege.edu website, in the search box, search for TechMap, and then apply, complete the application and follow the directions. Again, the interviews, and it's happening pretty soon, okay? So that's one for you guys. Let's go to the next one. So there's going to also, I was made aware of this by our contacts here, that we have there's going to be some recruitment events here at the college. And that blue box, take a look at that. In the Germantown campus, Rockville campus, and Tacoma Park, that's where employers are going to be. And this is not open just for students. This is open for anybody, okay? So more information in this webpage. Again, so just employer recruitment events if you do that. And if you have any questions, the people to contact will be right there on the purpose, on the right side, on the contact us. I think Maria will be the greatest contact. All right, let's go back to the presentation, and we're gonna wrap this up. Yeah, we're gonna switch that back. First of all, I would like to, yes, why don't we take a minute to do that? And then I know that it's 8 o'clock, and then I'm just gonna impose a couple more minutes on you guys. So if we can do that, out of what was covered in this presentation, what is the most and what action or actions will you take after attending this presentation? That action doesn't have to be big. It could be, I'm going to schedule an appointment with Chris, or I'm going to start looking a little bit deeper into this particular certification, whatever it is that you think is the next step. But you're here because you're obviously interested in getting into a career in IT, right? So what is going to be your next step? I'm going to do a skill assessment. I'm going to do this or that, whatever. So yeah, let's refresh it, and then let's give it a minute, and then we're just going to wrap this up. So just yeah. So I hope, again, I think that I hope that at the beginning we have that, what were your expectations for this? A lot of people said that they wanted information, that they were interested in this career path. I hope that this was useful to you in the sense that I was able to provide a little bit more information for hopefully clarified. Oh, I currently apply to TechMap. It sounds like a great opportunity to earn my CompTIA. Yes, very good. Actually, we've had a lot of people that has gone through the TechMap. It's an excellent program. Do follow up with Kristen, and yes, best luck to you. They are going to have the last cohort, and again, it's going to be actually the interviews are going to be here right at the hub. So hope to see you soon. All right, one more refresh, and then so again, I hope that for the people that was looking for information, that was useful, or at least that you found a resource that will help you to go forward in your career path. All right, thank you again for sharing. Let's go back to the presentation one last time. Actually, I'm going to ask you that you take, yes, a moment, just take a moment, and this is my imposition on you. Take a minute to complete this event survey, everyone. It helps me understand how useful this was to you guys, and please be honest if there's something that you didn't like, that you think that I should do better, by all means. Also, what else can we do here at the hub? Our director here is accompanying us tonight, and we seriously look at these surveys, at these results to plan our programming. So this helps us a lot to continue offering you something that is useful to you guys. And as you complete that survey, I would like to thank all of you that attended tonight's presentation, for all of you who attended 2 or all 3 presentations of the IT Career Pathways. It's been my honor, it's been my pleasure. I hope that this was actually, again, of use to you, and then it clarified or enhanced you, whatever it was, that you found something useful in your career path. And if not, that you at least found some other resources that can help you continue your career path. I appreciate you spending these 2 hours with us here at the hub, either here in person or for our guests that join us online. I do hope that you continue enjoying the rest of your evening. And in the next slide, you have my information. Again, this presentation will be sent to you. If you have any questions, comments, or anything else, just please do not hesitate to contact me. And once again, thank you so much for your presence, and have a good evening. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.